All right, guys, welcome back to Exotic Car Hacks, and today we are looking at the Maserati MC. This is a very, very exciting car because it's one of the easiest hacks to actually execute for Exotic Car Hacks. Now, if you don't know what a hack is, this is the time where you hit like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and you click the link in the description to actually take the free training on how to hack your dream car. In this particular case here, we have what we would consider to be a very, very clean MC. This is a 2016, which is a very, very nice car, but nonetheless, these cars are very problematic generally speaking, but yet they still make for an excellent first-time introduction to the exotic car space. And we're gonna look at this in detail in this video. All right, guys, welcome back, and a big thank you to Exotics Hunter for actually letting us use their showroom today to film a video of a car that I have not bought for the last 15 plus years. Obviously, this is what we consider the poverty level of the exotic car space, which means this is the beginning stage of your journey. Think of this as being the cashier at a McDonald's. It's the beginning of the journey, not the one you get stuck at, the one you transact from, you know? With these cars, you'll see that the majority of these cars look very similar. I want to point out for those of you that are new to the channel, maybe don't understand how exotic cars work and you're jerking off to a car on Auto Trader instead of actually learning this. There are two trim levels to the MC. There's the MC Sport line and there's the MC Actual MC. And the way we tell the Actual MC is these vents here, specific to this car, as well as this center mounted exhaust here. So if it's not an actual MC, this exhaust will not be there and the side vents will not, even though things like the spoiler may exist and other features may say MC inside. I'd also like to point out that in the car, the MC here, you see says Sport line, even though this is an actual full MC. So you could have either things regardless of the car itself. So don't use that as an indicator of what is the car. And even the Carfax may show that it's an actual MC Sport line or MC as one ding. So most of these cars from 2012 to 2013 are problematic. 2014 and 15 much better, 16 and 17 the best, and then 18 has the new interface on the inside, so a much nicer car, but the price goes up. You can buy these cars in the 40s all the way up to like the 60s, 70s, and you'll see a ton of cars much cheaper than that on the internet, and you want to stay away from those because they're probably incredibly fucked up. Now, the first place that you can see some of the wear and tear on these cars is generally in the headlights. In this case, you have a perfect headlight. Most of these can be foggy over time and damaged. And one of the things Maseratis are notorious for is actually having these start to turn yellow. Like the carbon quality is really, really bad, and it starts to show its age. Secondly, we can see that in this case, you don't have any pooling of the dash here, which is excellent, but very, very, very common on these cars. And we can usually follow this pulling of the leather around the edges of the airbag or anywhere else to really check how bad of a condition the car was kept in. Now, in this particular case, we have the more common issues the car has, such as the what you would consider to be the sticky buttons not corrected here, and you can see some of the trim falling apart. This, while on the surface may seem like, wow, this car was not kept well, this is very, very normal for these cars. This is very typical, and you'll find in many cases that things like this are common and part of the experience of owning a 160K car that's depreciated to 30K. And so I wouldn't expect these things to be perfect. I would just really check if you're OCD with, is that the car you want to be buying or not? You can see the sticky buttons have not been addressed here. It's roughly $1,000. And the headliners usually get saggy over time, and in this case, we have a perfect headliner. They've updated this entertainment unit. Now, contrary to what most people believe, even though we have been very graciously awarded the ability to use this car in this video, I would not recommend anyone from Exotic Car Hacks actually buy this car because of the upgraded interface. That is not a good idea on a used exotic. Keep the factory stuff. It does better, especially as it pertains to the inside of the car itself. Now, outside of the car seems pretty clean, generally speaking. The leather quality is something that gets damaged very, very fast in these cars, and that you have to be careful when looking at, generally speaking. Now, some of the bigger issues on these cars are quite expensive. The brakes are very expensive. The tires are okay, but the brakes are very, very expensive. And some of the components like the valve covers are notorious for leaking. So very likely that if you buy a car like this, you're going to have to spend $8,000 to $10,000 post-inspection to ensure you have a decent car. Now, you have all the basics here for the cars you need to be buying. If we look at the actual dollars, you should be looking at a 2016 to 2017 and pay under 50K to be at that point where it makes sense, or buy a newer car under 65K, being the 18 with the better interface if you wanted a newer Maserati. Convertibles are roughly about 5 to 7K above the coupes in wholesale, and that gives you an idea of where the dollars are. But now let's head to the board and look at the dollar directly for the Maserati MC. All right, guys, so today we're taking a look at the GranTurismo MC by Maserati. Now, Maserati is a shit company that basically is the leftover of who cannot afford Ferrari usually, and generally has product that depreciates very, very fast. If you've been watching some of our other videos, we've talked significantly about the downfall of some of their product, the exact dollar they would end at, and every single time, including with the MC20, that was a new car they've never released before, we were dead on the dollar with the depreciation schedule. So with the GranTurismo, again, you have the 2013 and 2014 cars, then you have the 2015 to 2017 cars, then the 2018, all the way to, these are really 2018, 2019 cars. And these are three different kind of cars. So they're the same on the surface, but there's better options. So the second, this isn't really a generational change or a facelift. This is the facelift right here. So everything here is going to be first gen. Components here in 13, 14 are not as good as 15, 17. They fix a lot of things wrong with the car and generally have more options like better hoods available, etc. Versus 2018 and 19 are a fully new interface, facelifted car and at a different price point. Now, as we saw here at the dealership, the majority of people who are looking for an entry-level exotic car, this is what we call the old Pinifero-based Maserati, where the designs were really Ferrari-like designs, and part of the reason why Maserati has lost its touch is because its design center is now basically Chrysler, so it's terrible. And so back in the day when Maserati had fame and had cars that basically meant something, they had a great Quattroporte, they had a great MC, and this is like the end of an era for Maserati that I think is still popular, and that's why they're holding somewhat of a semi-quality product on the market. So 13 to 14 can be bought in the 30s. 15 to 17 can be bought between the 40s to 50s. And then the 18s and ups basically are 60 to 80, depending on mileage, etc. Now, the problem with Maserati is all of these cars, regardless of how cool they are, somehow end up in the 30s and 40s anyways. So if you bought one for 80 and you got a great deal, you'd still end up in the 30s and 40s. And this isn't really your fault or something wrong with the car, is that even their new product that's like 180 grand or 200 grand now for the same shit box with an electric motor in it will come down eventually to like 50 grand as well. So, you know, they don't follow the same depreciation guidelines as most exotics because they're really considered a shitty luxury car in the sense of quality. We talked about some of the defects of the car and some of the things to look out for. The best value proposition is going to be right here, where the dollar is very stable between the 2015 and 2017, has better options, less issues than the 13 and 14s, and in the 40s and 50s is going to be a lot of car for the money. Like, it's something that you just have to consider. While the cars are not of the highest quality, I mean, you're talking about very old BMWs in the 40s, and now you're talking about, you know, less than 10-year-old Maseratis in the 40s. So these cars were still 160, 170K when they were new. Less than 10 years later, they can be bought for like 20 cents on the dollar, which is like insane. So, you know, I really like the 15 and 17 if you're going to be buying one of these cars. This is where you need to buy if you want to have optimum value and not lose money. You need to pay as close as you can at 40K, and you need to assume that you'll spend probably about 5K repairing the car right from the beginning once you get through a private purchase inspection. If you have roughly about 5K worth of repairs, the argument here is that the median price you want to be in order to be safe and still be able to drive for free for at least 5,000 miles is going to be around 45K. Meaning that should be the price of the car once fixed. So if you get a car through inspection that's perfect at 45, you can buy it. If you get a car that's, you know, needs a little bit of work, you're at 41, it's going to take 3K to bring it up, you can buy it. It's going to always end up in the 45K range if the car is cosmetically clean and mechanically can be brought up to spec for at that dollar range. So that's where you want to be. Now, the average mileage on the market currently, as of the time of this video, that you want to look for is your real opportunities, cars that have under 25K. this is where the opportunity is going to be. So the selling point of the car has to be 45K at 25K. So if you can buy basically any mileage below that 45K, below that 25K mile range, you're going to be able to drive all those miles for free. So let's say you get lucky and find one with 10,000 miles on the market and the guy is at 47 and somehow you negotiate him down to 45. Well, that gives you 15,000 free miles to drive over the next couple of years, which is a great opportunity. The way the Exotic Car Hacks formula works specifically, and one of the things we talk about at Exotic Car Hacks is figuring out the algorithm of mileage to dollar to options, giving you the ability to predict how many free miles can you drive, since the car no longer depreciates based on time, only mileage and condition. So if you're pre-buying condition and the car itself, the only thing that does make a difference then is the actual mileage. And once we know the mileage cap based on where the average mileages are based on the years of the car, etc., you know that anything you buy below that gives you the opportunity to drive up to that. So if you wanted to drive 15,000 free miles, you'd have to find a car with 10,000 miles at this dollar. And this isn't always easy. I want to be clear about that. This is one of the reasons why you need to click the link in the description and actually join Exotic Car Hacks so you can learn how to negotiate cars that are listed at 57, 58, 60 grand down to 45, and why it makes sense to do that. I think there's a big difference between people getting scared and who's going to give me a 20K discount on a car. I see cars listed at 60K. Where do you find a car at 45K? If the world was so easy that you didn't have to put any effort in doing anything, we would all be billionaires and none of us would be single, right? We'd all have families, be billionaires, the world would continue to move on and we'd all be happy. But unfortunately, it's not. So if you want to learn how to do this, click the link in the description, actually learn how to buy cars correctly. And so once you have the Exotic Car Hacks formula, I'm just giving you the results of the formula here just for you guys to get it for free here on YouTube for this particular car. But this is really the equation you need to follow: 25K miles, 45K, and this is where it's going to matter. As I said, in terms of option, make sure you're actually getting an MC and not an MC Sportline. These are different cars. The MC Sportlines are even cheaper and not as relevant. And then I recommend generally to lower these cars with Formula Dynamic kits and then end up doing a set of wheels. It sells them way better if you have a set of HRE wheels or something. You can find a majority of these things on eBay for like 4 or 5 grand and really spice up the car and then try to break out with a profit, especially if you pre-bought the actual mileage down previously. So that's kind of my view on the Maserati MC, the actual MC, not the MC Sportline. And if you've been looking at buying one of these cars, remember that formula, and this is how you're basically going to get ahead. Just remember, condition and private purchase inspections are going to matter. These cars always leak from the valve covers. So it's very common if you run into these cars and go through the inspection and find yourself with a ton of issues, just remember that it's very normal. It's going to come down to the cost. Some of the things you can do to avoid yourself having to go to inspections without actually spending money on a car that probably isn't worth it. You just know ahead of time that if the brake rotors and the pads are down to shit and you need to basically change them, you have $5,000 there. So don't waste your time with 30,000 mile cars that need $5,000 brakes and rotors if you don't have the margin. Meaning if you're buying the car for 45 and you know that's bad, you're already going to be at 50 plus tires plus shit. So you'd need to already be at 35 to account for the rest of the leaks and everything else that comes for it. You need to be in the car under 45K fully fixed for a 15 to 17 with under 25K miles. And whatever those under miles are is basically what you get to drive for free. So if you want more videos like this, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Otherwise, I'll catch you next time for Exotic Car Hacks.